Hey everybody, it's Logan with Sweetfish. In today's episode, we're going to share an interview from B2B Tech Talk from our friends over at Ingram Micro. B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro is a podcast that shares news about emerging tech before it becomes mainstream. Maybe you're a sales or marketing professional with an aptitude for new tech, or you just like to nerd out a bit on some of this stuff from time to time. I know I do. Or maybe you know an IT pro, a CIO, an investor in tech companies that might find this episode useful. In this new series, B2B Tech, you'll hear conversations with tech leaders as they explore topics like IoT, cloud evolution, the future of AI, and more. If you or a friend would like to go deeper on these topics, just search B2B Tech Talk in Apple Podcasts or be on the lookout for hashtag B2B Tech in the headlines here on B2B Growth. All right, let's get into the show. Welcome back to B2B Tech Talk. My name is James Carbary with Sweetfish Media, and I am the guest host for this episode. We are recording on site in Denver, Colorado at the Ingram Micro One event. And in this episode, I'll be chatting with Scott Goemmel. He is the managing partner at A&G Advisory Services. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really excited to chat with you today, Scott. So you owned a tech company for 10 plus years. Talk to us about how that experience in owning that company led you to doing what you're ultimately doing today.
Yeah, and it all comes back to the Ingram community too. All of us have businesses and different backgrounds coming into those businesses. Very few people in the channel have a formal business education. They're normally a salesperson, they're an engineer, they work for someone else, and they decided, I could do this better myself. Mm-hmm. So they didn't want to work for the man, and they start a company, and they're wildly successful. But they all grow it to a point, to a point of their incompetence almost. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like it gets too big, they don't have the business acumen and the knowledge of how to deal with, the people and the structure. And ultimately, they wake up at some point and say, "Wow, I'm making the least amount of money of everybody in the company, yet I own it." Yep. So there's just this epiphany where you realize you need to do something. So with my background, I really started in business, not in technology. So I have a strong business background. Same with my business partner, who we do this together. So I realized pretty early on, being involved in communities like this Ingram community and some peer group kind of communities, that I really enjoyed helping my peers. And we all helped each other, but some of us just found a passion for that. So our business was successful. We ultimately sold it. We did the pivot and the annuity that we're talking about today. We did that, 15, 18 years ago. So it's really not a new topic, but we were successful primarily because I think we took it from more of a business perspective. With our backgrounds, in my background in business, training, some of those decisions were just a little clearer. Yeah. And so when we sold the business, actually my business partner along the way had always said, "I think you almost like helping your peers more than you like running the business." And my business partner, Frank, I met is in this community and in an early evolution of this community. And when we both sold and people started calling us saying, "Hey, can you help us a little bit?" we realized, well, maybe we should kind of formalize that. And love it. It was a way to give back and help make a difference. So that's really the evolution of how A&G is founded. But we help our customers a lot, try to understand, are you growth or lifestyle? We are a lifestyle business. Two guys in a truck, few extra people, just leveraging our background, our knowledge, and the intellectual capital we developed to make a difference. So it's really rewarding.
I love it. So you're giving a talk this week, Scott, on annuity and business valuation. At what point does the annuity model impact the business valuation?
Yeah, it's a great question. Annuity is not new, as I mentioned earlier. This concept of managed services, that's an annuity. It started 25 years ago. What's happening now, though, is a lot of the traditional things, the product sale and resale business, is being annuitized, subscription, whatever word you want to use. And so as that impacts, right now, there's two things that impact valuation. There's the amount of net income you have in a company, and then there's some, I don't want to say arbitrary, but there's a value, a multiplier based on that. So if you make $1 million and you're a 5 multiple, simple math, you're worth $5 million, give or take. But there's a lot more to how that's defined. Yeah. The more annuity business you have that's services, the higher that multiple is. The more annuity business that you have as services, if you run your business well, you'll also make more money. So it impacts both of those variables and can drastically increase your valuation. The problem that the industry has right now is most people haven't moved their business mix where annuity is the predominant source of revenue and margin. Okay. And that creates a real problem right now because most in the channel, as I'll talk about, run their businesses at 30 to 50% less profit than they should. And that's to say they should is kind of a somewhat arbitrary thing to say too. But if you ran it at reasonable optimal levels, then you would have higher net income. So a lot of people could impact their valuation right now by just running it more efficiently. Could that increase my net income?
Yeah.
So annuity is an interesting mix right now, though, because the way valuations are calculated, you look at the mix of what's going on in the company. And if it's a product-focused mix, it's a lower multiple. And right now, the real issue is a lot of that product that's traditional. I sell a $1 million deployment, and sometime in the next 6 to 8 months, I've collected $1 million. Well, in the annuity world, I sell that $1 million deployment, and I collect that $1 million over 3 or 5 years. So the timing of the cash flow coming in is a significant issue. So if I'm not running my business at optimal profitability and some of my business shifts to annuity, I actually have a cash flow and net income issue. That has a really negative impact on valuation. So we're at an interesting crossroads right now. And what we're trying to teach in the session and what we do as coaches in our business at A&G is to really help people be ready to sell your company. Not everybody's selling their company. It's not all about selling. But most people, when they sell their company, they trip into it.
Yeah.
You know, they meet somebody at a bar, and next thing you know, we're talking, and next thing I know, we're talking about merging companies or whatever. Somewhere in that process, valuation gets real. And if you run it reasonably ready, when those things happen, then the expectation of what you're going to get is probably in alignment with reality.
Yeah.
The problem is most everybody today thinks their car is worth more than it really is. I mean, when was the last time you've taken a used car to a dealer with new tires on it, and they gave you anywhere near a Kelley Blue Book?
You're totally
Ever?
right. Nope. Never happened.
And they thank you for the new tires, but I'm not giving you an extra penny for it. So the same kind of thing happens in these businesses. You really gotta take care of what's the car, and treat it right, and then have a realistic view of valuation. And annuity is just tossing a real wrinkle in all of that right now. And so
Scott, talk to us about when you go in to help a CEO with this. You guys have a process that you walk through clients with. Can you walk us through what that process looks like? And then what tends to be the most challenging part of that process for CEOs that you're working with?
Yeah, great question. So let's go back to the premise that most of the CEOs and owners don't have a lot of formal business training. So they generally just don't know what they don't know. And so we have to go teach them that. The real issue we find is we're stuck on loyalty. These are people businesses. This whole business is a people business. This whole concept of efficiency and growing your net income is really about doing more with less people over time. And I think the biggest issue we have is we're stuck with loyalty. We're loyal to a fault to our people. And there's nothing wrong with being highly loyal. It's critical. We're people businesses. But most of these businesses started with some sort of family and friends as employees, and that network evolved. And suddenly you wake up and you got 20, 30, 40, 50 employees. And sometimes that's maybe 10 more than you should have. Yeah. And in many cases, we choose not to deal with it. So when we are out solving problems, most of our clients, before they meet us, really never get to the root cause or what's really the issue. They spend their time in symptoms, reactive. Yeah. And so our methodology really starts with the owner and really trying to pin them down on what are you really solving for? Are you growth or lifestyle? In the channel, if you went into the room that we just came out of and asked everybody to raise their hand, are you a growth or a lifestyle business? You would have 99.9% of hands go up, I'm growth. But if you go look at their 3-year financials and how they actually operate, it's the inverse. They're all lifestyle. And so it's hard for them to enact real change. So we start with the owner and say, what are you solving for? How long do you want to be doing this? And when you're done, what's your number? Most people haven't thought about the fact that I'm not going to always work and always do this. At some point, these businesses do sell. And everybody talks about it. So when we can pin somebody down on a number, and they can change that over time, but if we can get a demark down on a number, we are able then to help build a plan or a bridge and say, here's your business today. You're wildly successful. You've done a great job and you're super smart. However, it's far less than optimal. That's the normal conversation. And in order for you to, in 5 years, when you want to be done, get this kind of value, the business has to change. And here's what that gap is. And with our tools and methodologies and teaching and training, it really helps them take the emotions off the table, look at the data, put the facts on the table, build a plan, put the emotions back on the table because they're real and culture's real and all those things, then figure out of those decisions, what are the hard decisions that are going to take time and what are the immediate decisions. And I make it sound easy, but it's hard because it's really emotional. So again, the biggest issue, exactly. Yeah. The biggest issue is we're loyal, and we're loyal for all the right reasons. And we're loyal to a fault. And once you can get those emotions off and go, okay, I understand, rather than be efficient, I've just added people. Yeah. And at some point, if I need to monetize this, I'm going to have to deal with that because the seller's not going to deal with it.
Yeah. Real quick, before we jump straight back into the episode today, we want to tell you about Ingram Micro Financial Solutions and how you can maximize your buying power and get to yes with your customers faster. For the last 9 years, Ingram Micro has been Channel Pro's reader's choice for best financing options. Put the power of our credit and leasing options to work for you. You can easily contact Financial Solutions at ingrammicro.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
As a business owner myself, those are incredibly challenging, even thoughts to have is the person on this team the right fit? Do we even need this role anymore? And so those are, have there been, like, what is the typical advice whenever you're working with a CEO and they know, like, man, I really don't need these 3 employees anymore? What do you tell them as far as like how to have those conversations? Is there any wisdom that you share?
Yeah, it's always unique based on the culture, but I guess if you come back to why we started this A&G thing, we have all hired consultants who came in and told you what you need to do. Our industry is full of very amazingly smart people that can come in and say, you need to have 3 less people in sales. Mm-hmm. This metric should go to here. There's nobody out there that just comes in and teaches you how. Mm. So I think what makes it a little easier for us is we have a lot of tools that we've developed that take every part of the business and break it down into facts and data. Yeah. And then it's a lot easier, I think, to start picking the right pieces. You can't solve it all at once. It's a process. Yeah. But I think once an owner or partners, a lot of times these are multiple owners, which makes it a little more complicated. But once they get on the same page and have accepted that they have a gap and that they've accepted and committed to fixing that gap, then working with us, usually we can kind of find that right blend. And you know what? They don't always do everything that we would do. Mm-hmm. So when we work with a client and get them to define what success is, the only way we mentally know how to do it is if we bought that company tomorrow and we're solving for what that owner wanted to solve for. What would we do differently and why? Got it. So emotions and all of that loyalty and the culture are really important. The real question is, what's the timeline? The thing everybody's misestimating is time. Annuity's been out there for 23 years. Mm-hmm. Yet 95% of the channel has less than 10% of their revenue in just typical managed services. Mm-hmm. So, we've been all kind of, I don't want to say sleep at the wheel because it's an unfair thing to say, but we've all think we have more time than we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're totally right. One of the questions we love asking on this show, Scott, where do you see technology going in the next year?
Let's step back. I'll come to a year, but let me answer it first by saying the next 3 to 5 years. We believe that this whole movement to annuity and subscription, as being driven by the makers of the technology, the OEMs, the Ciscos, the Microsofts, et cetera, they're absolutely moving the cheese that way. The issue right now is that is a massively different economic model than the entire model this industry has lived on for the last 20, 30 years. It's a material difference. Back to the example earlier. If I get $1 million deal today, I'm going to sell it and deliver it and collect it sometime in 12 months. Yeah. If that deal's annuity, I'm collecting a third of it a year on a 3-year deal. Mm-hmm. But if I still have the same sales cost structure and legacy cost structure and all of that, I actually will go out of business in the midst of this thing. Because the channel has misestimated time, and we don't really get a vote on time. And if we had the crystal ball, we'd all have big boats with helicopters on it. But we know, I ask this question every time I speak, and with most clients we work with, do you believe that the rate of change on the outside is faster than the rate of change on the inside? The answer is yes. So we're falling behind while the OEMs and everybody else is shifting this stuff forward. So we would contend, and we often say, we believe a third of the channel probably won't exist in the next 5 years, primarily because we're seeing about $2 billion of financials a quarter. We're seeing a lot of things based on the work we do out there. And the balance sheets are weak and the net income's not strong for the average partner. So if that shifts a little too fast from a 1-year deal to a bunch of 3-year deals, many of the partners aren't going to have the working capital survive. So do I think in 1 year that shift is material? Yeah, because I think time is accelerating. We're starting to see and feel just kind of different tones and emotions when I talk to the business owners that we meet with and the peer groups we run and the way we kind of get some market intelligence. I think this whole subscription move, I mean, if you ask a 30-year-old right now, would they pay for this phone? They can't even imagine writing a check for $1,000. Go to Verizon and try your best to buy this phone for cash instead of $25 a month. I think the entire world and this whole next group of leaders that are already out there in management now want to live on a subscription basis. I don't want to go buy a CD. I'll pay $9.99 for iTunes or this for Spotify. I just think the world consumption behaviors are quickly shifting to annuity.
Yep.
And I think, we're well in the midst of that. And our channel and our partners, they need a lot of help. They need help from Ingram. They need help from their OEMs. There's, of course, people like us really trying right now to accelerate awareness and create action.
Yeah.
Because right now, I think the risk is those that think they have more time, are likely going to find themselves in trouble.
Yeah. You've made some incredible points here, Scott. If somebody listening to this wants to stay connected with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, email, website. Our website is www. I don't think I've ever said that. We're not a company that advertises a lot, but agadvising.com. And or my email, scott@agadvising.com. There's a couple of us ready to help. And so feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Scott. And if you're listening to this and you want to join the discussion, make sure to follow us on Twitter @Ingram Tech Soul and use the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. If you've not already subscribed to this show and whatever podcast player that you love the most, make sure to do that as well. Thank you so much for listening.
All right, everybody. I hope you liked that episode of the B2B Tech series with Ingram Micro. Again, you can find their full podcast feed by searching B2B Tech Talk in Apple Podcasts or wherever you do your listening. As always, thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, everybody. I hate it when podcasts incessantly ask their listeners for reviews, but I get why they do it. Because reviews are enormously helpful when you're trying to grow a podcast audience. So here's what we decided to do. If you leave a review for B2B Growth in Apple Podcasts and email me a screenshot of the review to james@sweetfishmedia.com, I'll send you a signed copy of my new book, Content-Based Networking, How to Instantly Connect with Anyone You Want to Know. We get a review, you get a free book. We both win.